taking a moment to
I
take
know.
this
I'm getting ready
in.
to do some video. We got good content.
Wait, yes, send me them. Get whatever you want.
I will do that.
Good turnout.
then I gotta get
There's
you
a
a
good turnout.
It's a great turnout.
Projecting to the people that are talking.
Oh, yeah.
We were getting a lot of reverb from everybody's lights in these speakers.
Uh-huh.
So they've turned those like way down.
Okay.
So that means you guys have to be way.
Okay.
It's okay. We can do this. So I just told them the reverb from all of the lights in these monitors was just too complicated. It's a very small space. They've turned those way down. So that means you guys have to be really to talk to people like in the back of the room. I know you've done this before. I'm talking to you.
Thank you.
Just so you know.
Thank you, Regina.
One more minute. This is where I'm like, hey, let's go. I'm like so ready.
I'm okay. Thank you. I'm good. I got my secret one behind me. Okay. I'm ready. Let me check it out.
Look at that. I didn't even need to do anything. Hi. Before we officially get started, I do want to just do a couple of quick shout outs and thank yous to everyone who has made this event possible today. First and foremost, the beautiful mics that every single person is holding is from CPI Creative. They are an amazing promotional company, women-owned. The amazing thing about tonight is that majority of our vendors, except for one, and I tried, but majority of our vendors are all women-owned businesses. So I also want to take a moment to thank Regina from Poetica Marketing. She is our event coordinator for today. Also, the delicious food is from Selena at Nurture. She's also a woman-owned company. If poke her head in, Selena. So thank you all for coming. It means so much to me. Some of you know why you're here. Some of you just said, Meesha said she was doing something and I showed up. So for those of you that don't know, I started a podcast a year ago where I interview women entrepreneurs and executives. And the whole mission behind this podcast is to basically share other women entrepreneur stories in the hope that it connects with other women who are thinking about or currently owning their own business and helping them to inspire and potentially start their own business. So we are 26 stories in. We have found some phenomenal women all over the nation. And then today is our 1-year celebration. I am incredibly humbled that these women have shared their time with me, especially these 4 women here. And I will let them start talking in a minute and I will stop. But again, I'm very humbled. Thank you all for coming. We're going to get right into it. So, ladies, why don't you do a quick introduction of yourself, and then also, what is your guilty pleasure at the end of a workday?
Oh, I'll start. My name is Tammy Thompson. I am the founder of T3 Consulting and T3 Media. I also founded a nonprofit called Catapult Greater Pittsburgh. And my guilty pleasure is snuggling with my kitty cat. I am obsessed with my cat, so he is my buddy. That's my after work pleasure.
Hi, everyone. My name is Daniela Ocio, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Kloopify. Kloopify is an enterprise B2B software focused on allowing organizations to integrate sustainability into their day-to-day buying activities or procurement. And so we're a data and technology software. And my guilty pleasure, I've actually started going to this solid core classes. It's like I don't know if you've ever gone to solid core. It's intense, okay? But it's intense because it's like the whole point is to make you like shake while you're doing a workout. And so it's just fun because it's so hard that I can't think about anything other than like, okay, breathe. And sometimes I need that.
Okay, I'm Yvonne Campos. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've had a couple of companies, several companies. I had Campos Research and Strategy for about 30 years and sold that. Traveled for 2 years, fabulous. Get to the place where you can do that. And then started another company, Next Act Fund, which was an angel investment fund for to invest in women-led, women-run businesses. And my guilty pleasure is really, I do binge watching. Right now, I am binge watching 30,000 episodes of The Good Fight. Remember The Good Wife? This was a follow-up to that I never even discovered until a few weeks ago. So every evening, when I finally get in bed, I'm binge watching this thing. It keeps me up to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I hate that.
But secretly love it so much.
Obviously.
Hi, I'm Christy Effelman. I say I challenge the status quo. In everything I do, I believe in thinking differently. I am the CEO and founder of Edge Leadership, and we build peer mentoring and coaching circles inside of large organizations and across industries with one goal in mind, and that is to create a more sustainable and inclusive talent pipeline all the way to the C-suite. My guilty pleasure is the Great British Bake Off. I have watched every season at least 3 times. I think they are the world's nicest people, and I want to be their friend.
They really are. So I will add on to this. I started watching it, and then like the bakers will help their competition through the show. And then like my American brain was like, what are you doing? Wait, what? You can't do that. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So thank you, ladies, for your quick introduction. What inspired you to start your businesses?
Well, I'll be honest and transparent and vulnerable here. I started my business out of necessity. I had gotten fired from a job and sort of got blackballed in that sector, and nobody would hire me. So I said, I have some skills, I have some talents. I did what all consultants do. When you can't work, you consult. So I started a consulting business, educating people about poverty. I worked in social services and the nonprofit sector and realized there are a lot of people working in this space who have zero firsthand experience in poverty, are making decisions for people that they know nothing about. And so I started a business educating folks with really good intentions, people who wanted to get it but didn't. And I've been running that business since 2009.
May I jump in next because you just inspired me?
Yes.
So I always say that I started my business out of desperation. So I started my career, so Pittsburgh born and raised. undergrad at Duquesne, 16 years of Catholic education, and graduated from Duquesne, went right into Johnson & Johnson. So big global healthcare. I was in surgical sales. And while I was a good salesperson, what I loved most about my job was mentoring new hires. So J&J had a great mentoring program where good salespeople mentored new hires, good division managers, all the way up. And I now, through the lens that I have at this age, I say I fell in love with adult development. But I didn't know it at the time. What I knew was that I loved developing people. So I should be a manager, right? Isn't that what managers do? They develop people. The ripe old age
They're supposed to. They're supposed to.
24. I'm like, well, obviously I should be a sales manager. And J&J had the philosophy that if you want to move up, you have to move out. And I was a single mom at the time, so leaving Pittsburgh to go to another territory wasn't a possibility for me. Went through a recruiting firm, landed at Bayer. Still big global healthcare, this time as a sales manager. And it didn't even take me a year to go down in flames. Because if you think about it, the qualities that make someone a good salesperson make them, at best, probably a C- sales manager. I just wanted everybody to like me. I did my people's work for them. And luckily for me, Bayer didn't fire me. They absolutely could have, because I was a horrific sales manager. They pipelined me instead into learning and development. And that's where I found that there was a role called coaching. And it was like, you know, the old Bugs Bunny cartoons where the sky opens up and the sun comes down and it's like, hallelujah. Like, this is what I was meant to do. So ultimately, I ended up leaving Bayer, starting my first company at the age of 27, Red Zebra, and it was focused on helping companies engage their millennial talent as they were moving up and becoming their first-time people managers. Because if you think about what happened to me, whose fault was it? Was it mine that I had oversold my abilities when I went into the interview and said, I can be a sales manager? Or was it the organization's? I didn't lie on my resume. They knew I hadn't any sales management experience. And the reality is there was a little bit of blame on both sides. And so my first company was focused specifically on helping young talent out of desperation. And then I was in the construction industry for 7 years, where I got super passionate about women's leadership and a more inclusive talent pipeline. So I would say the same.
Mine's a little different. Mine comes from my parents and my father and my grandparents. So my father immigrated here from Venezuela, and he was in pursuit of creating a life that would be better for me, my brother, kind of the classic American dream, let's say. And he's always, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My grandfather on my father's side was also an immigrant to Venezuela at the time and started a company. My grandfather on my mother's side, also an entrepreneur, started his own company. And so my whole life I've been kind of around entrepreneurs, or that entrepreneurial spirit of like, see a problem, be obsessed with solving them. And then I saw my dad, who had all of this incredible kind of energy and passion towards entrepreneurship, kind of get cut at the feet or down at the legs because he was an immigrant, which meant that his kind of legal status was tied with his employment at his current job. And so he did his best to keep that energy and that passion going by working in intrapreneurship inside the company. So leading in solar panels and 3D printing and micromobility and moving all over the world. So in the pursuit of the American dream, I somehow moved all over the world. I lived in Germany and Italy, and we lived in Puerto Rico. So really, that was kind of what I lived around. It was this entrepreneurial mindset. And so he always told me, if you want to solve a big problem, you need to know how the world works. You need to understand the problem that you're going to solve. You need to understand the challenges and the dynamics between the areas. And so I went into corporate America. I didn't go into entrepreneurship right after, even though I had a dream of starting my own company. And if you told me what that dream was like about, it was starting a company with my father, because it felt like that would be the greatest, like there would be the greatest honor for me to work with him him. And anyways, long story short, I worked in corporate America. I worked at DuPont. I was managing, I was, doing a whole bunch of work in procurement. And the pandemic is what made me kind of take inventory of my life. And so at that moment, it was one of those aha, like if you're not going to pursue your dream now, when are you going to? And so took inventory, and in the middle of the pandemic, just to sprinkle a little bit more uncertainty, I was like, peace out, I quit. yeah. And then it got hard, but it was.
And it actually never gets easier.
And but since then we been able to, my father and I, bring both our individual skills, his in machine learning and data and climate, and mine in supply chain procurement and enterprises, and we came together, and 1 + 1 didn't equal 2, it equaled 5, because we were so complementary to one another. And now we run a software company called Kloopify, and its mission is to help save the world, and that feels really cool.
Yes, love it.
So I never intended to be an entrepreneur. And actually, the word entrepreneur did not exist when I was trying to make these decisions, right? So you were a small business owner, right? That's what they called entrepreneurs a number of years ago. But I think as an entrepreneur, I don't think that you need to know that you want to do that right then and there. What it is do you see opportunities? Are there problems that you see that no one else is seeing? Or maybe they're seeing it, but they're not doing anything about it. That's the opportunity. And I think that's who I am, is I was able to see some gaps in the marketplace and then say, oh, well, I probably could do that, right? So I became an entrepreneur without really knowing anything about it. And I think sometimes to be an entrepreneur, the less you know, the better. Not really, but only because you have no idea how difficult it's going to be and what's going to happen. And I think a lot of people would turn away if they actually knew how difficult it was. But on the flip side, how amazing it can be. So I started, I moved to Pittsburgh in 1975 because of a job opportunity. I'm from Austin, Texas. And was working at H.J. Heinz with a research company out of Texas for about 3 years, and then I got fired. And so I had learned some skills, and I thought, what am I going to do in between all this, and got to get a job, and blah, blah, blah. And so I did consulting, right?
Noticing a trend?
So if you haven't done consulting, you need to do consulting. And actually, that's a true statement, because those people will be your clients later on. So I did qualitative research, focus group moderation, all that for about 8 years. And then I discovered that the Pittsburgh market was not offering clients locally and externally the quality of facility and talent that I could get. I was going to all over the country. And so I came back, did some research of my own, and realized there's a gap here. I can do this, right? And so I put I had a piece of property in Texas that I had left, and I got a second mortgage on that in order to have some dollars to put towards this business. And so built that business, sold it. After 30 years, I sold it, traveled for 2 years, came back and built another business because, again, I saw a gap in the marketplace. And that was, there was very few angel investors that were investing in women-run, women-led businesses, and very few women involved in that process. And so it was, I'm the person that says, well, how hard could it be? I mean, you're doing it, they're doing it, how hard can it be? I'm a smart girl, I can figure this out. And little do you know. But the point is you don't have to have all the answers, because you associate yourself with people that can help you. So there. Mm-hmm.
So tease me perfectly. Thank you, Yvonne.
I planned that.
let's kind of talk a little bit about being entrepreneurs, right? So we all know there's highs and lows, and I'm talking like highs where you go to initial meeting and they cut the biggest check of your life and slide it across the table, right? And then there's lows where
I love it when that happens.
I'm saying, right?
See,
Right?
now they just direct deposit it. It's not as exciting. I mean, it's still great, but it's not as fun.
But still, you walk out of the meeting with a pile of money. So like, there's that high, right? Because that's happened to everyone here, I'm sure. And then there's the low of, we're in a fetal position, ready to throw in the towel. So can you talk a little bit about how you navigate those highs and lows?
Well, the way I navigated it is I made sure that I had a backup plan. And just being honest, when I started my business, I was a single mother of 5 children. So I didn't have the luxury of risk taking the way you need to have the luxury as an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is all about risk taking and failure. And being able to, like, failure is a positive thing in entrepreneurship. That's how you learn. That's how you know what not to do again. But unfortunately, many folks who are starting businesses, me in particular, when I didn't have a backup plan, I've self-funded everything. I disposed of my 401k. Those were because I didn't own real estate then. I couldn't do a second mortgage. And so I was nervous and I was afraid of failure. And I had already been out of work, right? I had been out of work for a year. So getting a job for me was mandatory. I had to have a steady stream of income as I was building this business. And the consulting, I did great for a while, but it was just exactly as you described. Some months you get all these opportunities, and the money it's more money and more contracts than you can handle. And then you go sometimes 6 months and nobody's answering their email, nobody's picking up the phone. And so for me, that was not an option. So I found the nonprofit sector and realized that the work that I was doing in my business was very much in alignment with the work that I wanted to do in the nonprofit space. And so I am one of the lucky ones in that I have this incredible nonprofit organization that feeds business to the consulting business and vice versa, because the work is in such alignment.
It's really good strategy.
Absolutely.
Versus luck. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, because I like a steady paycheck now. I don't know. I got to have me a check. I like a steady check. So, but it's been great. And my work has been great for the nonprofit, and the nonprofit has been great for the work. So it's been a win-win situation for me. Yeah.
So what was the question again? The good and the bad? The good and the bad?
The highs and the lows. How do you
highs and the
navigate
lows.
the highs and the lows?
You have to wake up every morning and go to work. Basically it. I almost lost my company 2 or 3 times. 2008, for example, when the recession was there. I had to ask my employees to take 20% pay cuts. I'd sit down with my landlord, who was think of Willie Nelson. That's who my landlord was. Perfect for me because he was he was an individual that owned the property. I was on the Boulevard of the Allies in downtown Pittsburgh. And if I had been with a big commercial real estate firm, they never would have worked with me. He did. So the relationships you make along the way are the ones that are going to help you sustain when everything goes down the tubes. And I would sit down with him and I'd show him my books and everything. And I'd say, his name was Ward. Ward, look here. See, here's where the money is. Here's what I'm spending. See these zeros over here? I said, I have this much money, and what do you think I'm going to do? Do you think I'm going to pay my employees, or do you think I'm going to pay you? And he looked at me and he said, well, if I was you, I'd pay my employees. And I said, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I am going to pay you. I just cannot pay you right now. I need you to help me with this. Had I not had that, we would have been out. So it is about the people that you surround yourself with and work with and make sure that you're transparent and so on and so forth. But it's a constant issue when anything was going, when the whole company was going like all cylinders, everything beautiful, the right people on the bus, the right projects, wonderful thing. We used to say, don't get used to this. Enjoy it. We'd celebrate it. We'd enjoy it. But in 15 minutes, it could all go to hell, you know? But you have to be committed to what you are trying to do, the goal, the mission of your company, and what you want to accomplish. And you have to sell people on that vision and mission to go along with you. Because I certainly could not compete with the large companies in the sense of pay and benefits and so forth, but I could really sell what we were trying to build and what we could do together. Yeah.
Oh, may I go next, Daniela? Thank you. Because there's a million different ways I could piggyback off of that. 2 best practices around the lows. One, building off of what you said, Yvonne, around the peer group and the power of a peer group. The second is around the importance of self-compassion. But before I get to the lows, I want to talk about the highs for a second, because regardless of if you're an entrepreneur or not, if you're in corporate, here's what we know about women: we don't celebrate our successes enough. Like, we are on to the next thing all the time. And I think it's really important, you know, as I look back over the 10 years that I have had this business, which is my second business, and I've done a much better job this second time around celebrating the successes, honoring those highs, because as Yvonne said, like, the lows come, you know they're going to come. And it's really important to be in the moment and appreciate it when things are going well. So the peer group and self-compassion, 2 quick thoughts on that. What you were saying, my friend, around those that we surround ourselves with as we build our business is key. Who our partners are. You know, I was saying to someone outside, you know, a woman had asked me, so, you know, who are you? What are you doing here? And I asked her the same question, and she said, oh, I'm a friend of Meesha's. And I said, I'm a friend of Meesha's. And I said, you know, Meesha and I have this really great relationship in that we are friends, and Meesha has been my client, and I have been Meesha's. And so I think that, you know, the strategic partners that we pick are really important, and our circles matter, our friends matter. You know, when we have those down times, who our partners matter. You know, the number 1 best practice for success as an entrepreneur, I'm going to tell you right now, is your life partner. It's the person that is beside you, and are they supporting you in your dream, and are they there when you're down, and are
if
they
they're
lifting
not,
you up?
you get rid of them.
That's right.
Absolutely.
I feel like we just mic dropped that. Self-compassion.
We can just go home now. Like,
and you're welcome. But the other piece of that, right? So there's this external piece of who you surround yourself with, and then there's also this internal piece. And, you know, I call that my inner critic. You may call that something else, but that's the voice that when you have those bad moments, starts talking to you and saying things like, you're never going to get this. You're never going to make it. You're not a good enough CEO. You're not even really a good enough coach. You're not a good enough mom. You're not a good enough wife. And if we don't figure out how to manage that voice in our heads, and I say, you know, I mean, when I coach women, you want to, you know, resist it and you want to fight it. And the reality is we need to befriend the voice. The voice came to us at a time in our lives to keep us safe, for whatever reason that may mean. And we need to understand where it came from, and we need to treat it like the analogy that I would use, and then I will stop talking. But the analogy that I will use is it's kind of like a carjacking for me. So my voice, I have named her. Her name is Edith. It's true. I can even picture her. She has her hair pulled back in a tight bun in the back of her head. She wears glasses and red lipstick. And she often is in judge's robes, kind of like Judge Judy. That's what Edith looks like to me. And so sometimes I'm in a meeting, I'm in a conversation, something happens, and it's like I'm sitting at a stoplight and Edith carjacks me. And so sometimes she comes in my driver's side seat and she elbows me to the face and I fall into the passenger side and she takes off. She's driving my car. I am not in control at all. She's in control of the playlist and everything. Other times, instead of coming in my front seat, she comes in the passenger side beside me. I'm still driving the car, but boy, is she loud. And she's in my ear saying, turn left, turn left. I said, turn left, Christy. You know, where are you going? You can't go there. And our goal with our inner critic is how do we get them in the back seat? We're never going to not have them. Welcome to humanity. This is a part of being human across the gender spectrum, by the way. But when Edith is in my back seat, not only is she not controlling my playlist, but I can say, I hear you back there, girl. We're still going left today.
Mm-hmm. Put her in a trunk.
I haven't tried that
Exactly. That's a good. I might do that one.
Yeah, put her in a trunk. Not that I've ever put anybody in a trunk.
You heard it here. You heard it.
Yep. For me, I think I've made the decision that no matter what happens, I am going to be okay. And knowing that no matter how difficult something is, at the end of the day, I will have the resilience, the power, the anti-fragility to benefit from this situation and know that I will be okay. Will it be painful? Yes. Will life happen to me the way it happens to everybody else? Yes, but my challenges and different challenges are gonna affect me differently, and I've made the decision I'm gonna be okay because we've gone through a lot, as in me and all of,
Edith,
my version of Edith and all these different things. We've gone through a lot, but at the end of the day, we're still here. We're still okay, and we're going to be okay. And what if nothing is missing? What if I am enough? What if I am enough? And this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And so, yeah, do I cry in the shower sometimes? And like, yeah, I do, but who doesn't? Like, life happens to us. And do I also like drive down the highway with like windows down, like music blasting, like nothing can stop me? Yes, I do. I do both of those. And I, through both of those, know that I'm going to be okay.
So Daniela, let's stay there, right? Yeah. So you are, from the panelists, one of our newest entrepreneurs. So let's talk about some of the challenges and obstacles that you were talking about and how did you navigate those?
Well, listen, I won't sugarcoat it. I think that being a woman, a Latina, I think it plays into how people have seen me when I walk into doors. And so I don't pretend like it's not there. I recognize that it's there. And I think I've become aware of the fact that I can't let it control me. I can't let it control my reactions. Because when I was, for example, raising investment money, I was raising money for my company, there were people that straight up to your face said, yeah, but you're a woman and you're brown and you're non-technical and you've got pretty much every card stacked against you. Like, why should I invest in you when there's like, you know, they don't have that many cards, you know? And the truth is, like, cards have always been there. It's not new to me. And somehow, you know, when you become okay with it, I think when you acknowledge it and you don't let it control you, both in the sense that you don't let it define you and you don't let it get you to rage either, and you can find your centerpiece and continue to make progress and then continue to find people around you that support you and empower you, you both no longer care what they really have to say, but you also don't want them in your corner in the first place. So if you're acting like that towards me in the first place, like, I don't even want you next to me, because like, check out the room of people that I can get next to me. Yes. And that's way better than anything like that. So it's about knowing who you are. It's about not letting those things control you. It's about making progress. It's about connecting with the right people. And I've found that here in Pittsburgh, which I'm very grateful for. I feel like I've had a full community that, as the moment I stepped in, was like, girl, I got you. Like, let's go. And that's really awesome.
That is awesome. We like having you here too.
Yeah.
You know, as I'm listening to you, and I just keep hearing the words of Brené Brown, when we deny our stories, they define us, but only when we own them, we get to write the ending. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that.
Love that. That's so true.
So Christy, let's stay with you for just a second. So you are in the DEI space, right? So for those of you who don't know, diversity, equity, and inclusion, you are in the DEI space, which is a very saturated sector. What do you do to help set yourself an edge separate from the others?
It's a great question. And, it's interesting. It's only been recently. So we're in our 10th year of business as Edge Leadership. And thank you. I'll take that. And being in the DE&I space is still new to us. We started in the leadership development space. That was where we started, building high potential development programs inside of large organizations. And those programs started to impact DE&I metrics. And so one of the things at some point tonight I definitely want to talk about is the importance of evolution in your business and how to evolve as your market evolves. But specific to this question, the leadership development space, the DE&I space, super saturated. And what I would say in terms of answering the question is you have to know how to sell. And I think that as business owners, Yvonne, you said earlier, we get into this business to fix something that drives us nuts, which, by the way, is a great best practice. If you're thinking about a side hustle, if you're thinking about a business, fix something that drives you nuts, because if it drives you nuts, chances are it drives other people nuts. And that's not enough. I can be an A+ coach, which I'm not. I'm a good coach, but I could be an A+ coach. If I was a C- salesperson, none of you would know who I am. I wouldn't have any business. There are plenty of amazing coaches out there that don't have the breadth and depth of client portfolio that we have because of the sales process. And so, when I'm mentoring a new entrepreneur, that's one of the first things I say is what is your sales process going to look like? Do you understand what your why is? Can you communicate it in a way that brings value to your market? When we first started, we were doing leadership development. And so we were focused on, if you remember, my first company was focused on millennial talent. That was where the pain was. When you and I met, remember, that's what
exactly
we were talking about, was
exactly
millennial
right.
talent. And then as the market evolved, our offerings evolved. And we had the opportunity, I had a great sponsor in Henry Mayer at FedEx, who gave us our first opportunity with a great big company. And that opportunity was specifically around women. And it was to help build a more sustainable female talent pipeline. And all of a sudden, now we found ourselves in the women's space. And then it was actually Henry and his team again who came to us and said, well, how about men? This was 2017. He's like, all of the programming for men out there in terms of building a more inclusive talent pipeline, well, it's like sexual harassment training. It's shaming. There's got to be a better way, right? Here's a true story. I actually said no twice before I said yes. I said, no, that's not what we do. We're in the women's space. We do group coaching experiences for women. The third time they asked, I was like, well, if you want to pilot it. That was a year before the Me Too movement. And it ended up becoming a huge part of our business then. So I go back to understand sales, get a good mentor. It's not enough to just fix something that drives you nuts, and evolve as the market does from a sales standpoint. So, very practical example, and then I'll stop talking, is your website. So I think about our iterations of who we were as a company. The why has always been there. The why is to challenge the status quo. The why is to inspire hope. But how we market that shifts, as it should. And, I think a lot of people, when they start out, are like, and here's the website, and here's our brand, and here's our marketing. And I think it's really important to be intentional about all of that.
And I know a really good web design company if anyone needs any help.
I was actually just thinking as I was driving here.
You planned that.
It's time to update our website a little bit.
But I will say, so to piggyback off of that, because I had a really, really hard time with sales whenever I first started as well. And I think also everything Christy said, yes, but also taking somewhat of that preconceived notion of what a salesperson needs to be. Because I had in my head that it was like the slicked over car salesman, I'll give you 5% off, right? Like, come on, let's sit down, let's do a deal. And when I shifted that to more relationship building and like have a need, I have a solution, I am a phenomenal saleswoman. And I can say that, I can step into that because I have a solution and you have a problem. I'm not trying to give you something that you don't need. So,
Can I add to this? Sometimes sales also sucks. Like, can I just say that out loud? It's
You
like,
can.
Sometimes
Yes, you can,
it's just
Daniela.
hard. Sometimes it's just frustrating. And sometimes you don't want to do, I just don't want to do it. Like, there's so many other things I want to do. But it's also about having discipline to know the power in sales and the necessity in sales. And no one's complaining when money is flying in the door. And at the end of the day, that's what's going to keep you happy. It's what's going to keep your employees happy. It's what's going to keep you continuing to grow. And so sometimes you just have to do
The thing
the
you don't
thing
wanna
you
do.
don't want to do.
Yes.
May I add to that? The issue is that, especially if you're a small company, is that you're either selling or you're executing. Not, you can't do them at the same time. Very difficult to do at the same time because you don't have enough staff. And so what happens, your income is like this, right? Because it goes right along that same pipeline. You're executing, you can't sell as much as you need to be out there, and so you have money up here, you're executing, but then the next 3 months, there's nothing because nobody's been selling. So one of the key things that I did as a company is I obviously observed that, and I said to myself, even though we're not big enough, we are bringing someone on in addition to myself, because I was, almost all businesses, you're the key salesperson, is someone that can help with that. You have to pay more money. I pulled money from other things and started acting more like a bigger company. The sooner you do
That's a good mindset shift.
the better. The sooner you do that, the better. And it does more than, it puts a process in place. It has someone selling all the time. And it also, the perception of your business is impacted positively. People, one of the great things about Compost Research and Strategy was people always thought we were much bigger than we were. And we weren't that big, but everybody thought, oh, they're nationally recognized. They're the top in the region and blah, blah, blah. Little did they know. But my point is, if you act that way, then you're perceived that way. So it really is being very practical about not having this all the time. That's the trouble with consulting. I consulted for like 8 years, and you probably have this experience too. And especially if you're a one-man shop, you're just, or one-person shop, you're going like this, like this, like this. When I decided to build a company, not just have my own business, but build a company, is when I realized in a consultant, no work, no pay. As a business, somebody's working all the time so that I can get paid. The business as a business is making revenue, whether I personally am doing it or not. And that's the big difference.
That is huge.
love that. Tammy, I know that a lot of the work that you're doing in Pittsburgh here is around Black home ownership and Black-owned businesses. So we have a lot of business owners, we have a lot of leaders here today. What, if anything, can we do to have more Black professionals stay inside of Pittsburgh, or even helping Black-owned businesses?
Whew, well, that's a great question. And that would be the ultimate consulting gig if I could answer that.
We'd be making big money.
Yes, I would make
money.
all the money if I could answer that question. So I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question. But what I will say is that there's things that we all can do, right? First of all, we have to want to do it. We have to want to think about our community, meaning this city, as a community for everybody, right? We've become, I think, as a society, very insular, very me-focused, very individualistic, and it's destroying our community. It's destroying our society, just being honest. The work that we're doing is very, very, very important, not just because we want to see individuals be first-time home buyers, or we want to give individuals who would not have otherwise had the opportunity to start their own businesses and have that technical support. That's important. But we're thinking about long-term, and what I see this is as a long-term investment in society. It's a long-term investment in our communities, and it's a long-term investment in the city and county. The more people that have access to ownership true ownership, ownership of their housing situations, ownership of their ability to transfer wealth to the next generation. These are things that are beneficial to an overall society, not just individuals. And I think we have to get really honest, first and foremost, with our own implicit biases that we all have. Everybody in this room has implicit biases. But once we get comfortable and familiar with those biases and check them when we are thinking about doing business with someone, when we're thinking about intentional creation of opportunity, I think that all of us have the ability to give back to people, quite honestly, that have historically not had the same opportunities. And I think we have to get to and understand that's real. That's not made up. It's not fabricated. There are groups of people in this country who have not had the same opportunity. And once we understand that, it's not saying that we all have to think that none of us were here, right? We're not saying that you should feel some type of way. You should feel guilty about the success that you've had. Or that's not what that means at all. It just means that when you're considering why other people haven't done similar things or are struggling to just meet their basic needs, that we have to understand it is not an individual issue. It is not because people are deficient or defective or they're not working hard enough. It's not that at all. It's going to take all of us to bring an entire society of people along. And so when you're doing business, right, having some intentionality about, well, maybe I should, because we've gotten really good at, every event is a woman-owned. I was intentional about selecting women-owned businesses to do this work because I know how important it is to be intentional about creating opportunities for people who haven't had those opportunities. Take it a step further. Do I know any black-owned businesses that do the same thing, right? Being intentional about creating opportunity for other people is so very, very important, especially in a city like Pittsburgh. So why are people leaving? Why are professional people and entrepreneurs leaving Pittsburgh? Well, I can tell you in case you guys didn't notice, I'm a black woman.
Shocker.
So everything that I talk about, I'm always going to be speaking from the lens of a black woman, right? Folks are leaving this city because, number one, we are the smallest demographic of people in the city. There's less than 20% of Pittsburgh is black. And so as an entrepreneur, if I am only depending on people who look like me to sustain my business, to purchase my products, to use my services, guess what? I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it because the demographic is too small. So Black business, and we teach, when we teach entrepreneurship, we tell our folks all the time, you have to step out of your comfort zone. You have to get to the folks who don't look like you. You have to encourage them and show them that your products are just as good as anybody else's, your services are just as good. But hiding is not going to do it, because if you're only depending on me, and look, I buy everybody's stuff, but I only... but you've got to get out there and you've got to stretch your market. You've got to stretch your potential clientele. If Black folks are going to survive in this city from an entrepreneurial perspective, they're going to have to depend on you. I mean, that's just the reality. So be intentional, right? If this is something that you're interested in supporting, if you want to support your Black neighbors and your Black businesses, you have to be intentional about that support. Spend your money with people. Tell a friend about a business that you utilized and enjoyed their services or their product, or this is why folks are leaving. The market is too small. And you know, Pittsburgh is one of those cities, and right, we talked about what we're going to talk about on here. But Pittsburgh is a very self-segregated city. And self-segregation is destroying our economy. It is not good for any of us. It's not good for the city as a whole. It's not good for this country as a whole. It's definitely not good for Black business owners, right? So it's normal. It's natural that we tend to move towards our own groups, people that we're familiar with, people that we have history with. But if we're thinking about the good of an overall economy and the good of this city, we have got to be intentional about supporting all businesses, about supporting Latino businesses, supporting Black businesses, being, the same level of support when we say, I want to spend money with a woman. Take it a step further. I want to spend money with a Black woman. I want to spend money with a Latino woman. I just think we have to be intentional about that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was a heavy question,
Yes.
but thank you. I really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that. Thank you. Yvonne.
Yes, ma'am.
So, you have Next Act Fund. I'm sure you've mentored a million different women. What?
$1.6 million.
$1.6
I've been counting.
What makes a successful business versus one that just doesn't take off?
Well, we were teasing earlier, and I said, you just got to get up and do it, But what it is you really do have to meet a need of some sort. Sometimes you do something that you like or you love or you want to do. That's where a lot of times small businesses start that way. It's because you're good at something and you really love it and you can do it well. But if it's really not needed in the marketplace, then that's a problem. That's really an avocation, not a business. Unless you can turn it into a business, and a lot of people do. But I think the success comes from being completely committed to making it a success. It is not, I think I'll be an entrepreneur, okay? Or I'm just going to try it for fun and maybe
No one ever.
No, because it is probably the hardest thing you'll ever do. In the sense of what it takes from you personally to do a business. But the people that are successful, of what I have observed, is they're willing to do the work every day.
They're disciplined
Every
about it.
day. You might be a little bit lazy one day here and there, but they really do. I mean, they're very committed to moving the business forward, and I want to say something about basically businesses in general. We're not talking that every business has to be a unicorn business and be $1 billion, right? There are different kinds of businesses, and all of them have value, and all of them can help you create a wonderful life. You have lifestyle businesses. For example, you can be a hairdresser and decide to have one salon where you're working with people across the city, and you can have a nice living. You can have you're teaching other stylists and so on and so forth. That's a fantastic business if that's what you want to do. All I'm saying to you, there's different types of ways of having a business. And sometimes you get into one and you see immediately that you can take it to step it up. Other times you say, this is great. This is what I want to do. I want to keep it here because it fits my life, my personal life, my professional life, and so forth. But the whole point is being actively thinking about it, because the way you think about a business, one of the biggest mistakes I've made a lot, but one of the biggest ones I've made is not thinking big enough early enough.
Amen to that. Yeah.
Okay? And you're making decisions based on this vision when the vision should be over here. And the decision you make here impacts that over there. So if you can make a decision, it doesn't mean you can't change your mind, we all do that. But the point is to being very proactive and thinking about what kind of business you want as early as possible, because your decision making will change as a basis of that. But it's perfectly okay to have a Main Street business.
Yeah, I want to hit on that really quick because I've been pushing back on the business, the gurus, the people who dictate what's a business and what's not. I've been having a lot of conversations about, I've heard people say things like, well, if your business isn't making at least $30,000 a year, is it really a business? And that pisses me off so much. And this is why. So a lot of the women that we work with in our entrepreneurship program, these are women who've never had aspirations of being an entrepreneur, ever. Never said, I want to be an entrepreneur. They started businesses out of necessity. Their jobs were not paying what it costs to live in this city and raise children in this city. And we primarily work with single moms. And these moms are working full-time jobs. They're taking care of their kids. They're operating these what they call side hustles on the side, and getting people to take them serious about their business is important, because even though for folks who are like, well, I'm a millionaire, we're trying to get to the unicorns. Well, for these families, they are the unicorns, right? They're earning the money that sends that kid to a piano lesson, or can buy him cleats so he can go play football. She's putting extra food on the table. She's working in this business to make ends meet, to survive. And if that's not worth investing in, I don't know what is, right? So we're not going to diminish these businesses. They are businesses. They are generating revenue. And just like you said, everybody's not going to be a unicorn. Everybody's not going to make $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 a year, but many people are going to earn enough to put extra food on the table and do something extra with their children. And I think that's extremely valuable.
You know, just to comment on that, of all businesses, men, women, every business in the United States, what percentage of them do you think ever break the $1 million mark?
Not many.
It's a little low, but it's around 8 to 10%, and that number has not changed. That percentage, and that's counting U.S. Steel to my barber or hair salon, every business. So most businesses are very small. Yes, it's lovely when you can jump up that, and some people are meant to jump up that and want to jump that. Hallelujah. Other people are not. They're making a great life for themselves and for their families, and we have to value all of those businesses. The problem, but I will tell you, the issue with that is I think there would be a lot more women businesses that were a lot larger if they, in fact, were getting any of the money that's been distributed. So that's the problem of venture capital that is invested in women-owned businesses. They were getting like 3% of all venture funds. The billions and billions of dollars that are being invested, about 3% of those dollars were going to women-led companies. So how am I going to get to unicorn?
That's right.
When I don't have any money?
That's right.
Right?
That's right. I'm barely a raccoon.
I know. if that, right? Absolutely. And we don't want to be raccoons all the time.
Well, and I also think we would be remiss. So we're talking about society, we're talking about the region, we're talking about how folks look at our businesses. I think it's also important for us to stop and think about how we talk about our business. There is a mindset there, if you're referring to it as my side hustle or, this little thing that I do. I can't tell you.
That's what used to aggravate me.
How many, right? Yeah. This little thing that I do. You're a business owner.
That's right.
And so the work that you are doing, helping, these women own their story and be able to tell their story, but if we in our mind, and I know I talked with, several folks in the audience who aren't business owners and who work in corporations. This is every bit as relevant if you aren't a business owner too. The story you tell about yourself matters. The story you tell to yourself matters.
Stand proud in your energy, stand proud in your light, stand proud in who you are and what you bring to the table.
I love that.
Yeah, and here's what I will tell you. In doing so, you will ignite the flames of those around you to do the same. By owning it yourself, you showcase what is possible. You make it possible for the person sitting next to you or 2 rows up right now that they can too.
So I'm going to do something a little unorthodox. We only have a few minutes left. I have a lot more questions to get through, but we only have a few more minutes. I would personally like to hear from each one of these women about sort of work and family life balance, or we can talk about how successes and priorities have changed for these women. So this being a live recording, does anyone have any, would like to go? I know it's like a live vote. So which way do you guys want to hear more about work-life balance, Do you guys want to hear more about how success's priorities have changed throughout a career?
Let me just say, the only reason I was being tacky was because you never hear that question asked at any male panel
So
or
wait.
interview.
So I will. Okay. So I will.
So,
I will
I'm just
agree.
saying.
I will agree with this, and I have had
But I'm
numerous
happy to address it.
I've had numerous conversations late at night with my wife because it is a struggle of mine. I don't want to ask that question, but the reality is, men don't have to deal with those things. So we need to make, I think Allison is actually here. Allison answered it beautifully on my latest podcast, if you can go and listen anywhere where you can stream. She talked about work-life integration and also how removing that question from being that's only women get asked that. No, let's have that be the norm because that's what women have to deal with.
We have to change the language then.
Fair.
Okay, so
You
change
work
the
on that,
language.
Yvonne, and tell me so that I'll ask that.
No, but I'm
still,
just
so
saying.
my soapbox got not off of here. I will say, I think we need to ask it and we need to talk about it because it is something
I
that
agree.
women
It's a big
have to deal
problem.
with,
It's a
and
big
men
issue.
don't.
It
No
is a
offense to my
problem.
men in the audience.
It's a big issue. It is definitely a big issue. It's always been a big issue and probably will always be an issue at some level. But I guess the language around it needs to change versus that we are responsible for balancing work and life. Everyone is responsible for balancing work and life. So I don't know the language you just used with that you gave an example. Maybe that's a better way to talk about it. But I moved to Pittsburgh in 1975. I've been in business like, 30, 40 plus years. And I've been asked that question every damn time I'm on any panel or anything.
Well, we're not asking it this time. We're not asking it this time.
But my point is, my point to say is, it hasn't changed.
Fair.
But
That's the sad part.
But I completely agree, and I think we need to be asking men about this because I do believe that probably there's a lot of good men that do struggle with balancing wanting to be home with their families and children and wanting to have a more active life versus not doing it. But I also agree with the fact that, like, for example, I'm a woman and I know one day I do want to have children, but I also know biology because, like, I've been told a million times. And here's the reality of it is, like, I do have questions because I do have a career, and right now my priority isn't that, and maybe it changes later, or maybe I find there's different things, and so as a woman entrepreneur, it is something that I'm facing. It is something that I need to talk about.
Every young woman.
And
is
every
facing
young woman needs to, or some, yeah,
almost
yeah,
every, almost every young
some
woman.
women think about, but I think the point behind the story is that needs to be talked about from our perspective, but it also needs to be talked about from the other perspective, and we have to have room and space to understand our own biases when we're asking these questions, and our own intentions when we get at the intentions of the others when they ask us.
Yeah, I just want to touch on it really, really quickly because I was a single mother of 5 children. There was no work-life balance. I had to work. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So my children suffered. My relationship with my children suffered because it was either go to work or nobody ate. And so I have adult children now. They're all adults. They're all in their 30s, and they're very vocal about how I screwed them up.
Well, my kids, to your point, my kids, I have 2 daughters, 2 grown daughters in the 40s, and they often tease me, but I think they really mean it, that I will never get the Mother of the Year award.
Oh, they mean it. Yeah, they mean it, right? Well, it's fair that they have this. These are their feelings. These are their thoughts. I wasn't there for a lot of the very important things in their lives. I wasn't always at the bake sale or the football practice, or I wasn't because at the time I didn't feel like I had a choice. And that's the thing, creating choice and opportunity. And when we talk about work-life balance, we shouldn't just be talking about people having to decide whether or not they're going to work or be with their families, but also we're talking about being with ourselves, right? My work-life balance, so now my kids are grown, right? So now my work-life balance is, what am I doing for myself? Am I taking time, or now that my kids are gone, do I think it's okay for me to work 14, 16 hours a day. It's not, because it's not good for me. It's not good for us as individuals to not have a balance between building a business, working, and spending time with ourselves and taking care of ourselves. So to me, the balance, the work-life balance should also include how we're being there for ourselves.
Love it. Okay. So we're not answering the question.
No,
we didn't just answer the question. The question now is. Thank you, everyone. It was great input.
Actually,
no, you can't. No, you can't.
Get help. Get help if you can.
This is fair. This is
if
fair.
you're in a
Yes.
position where you can get help, that's what will make a difference in your work-life balance. But not everybody is in that position, right?
Jumping on that is giving yourself permission to receive. Like, there is a skill in asking for help. There's privilege in being able to receive it. But then there is also a skill in receiving. Period, full stop. And it is something across the gender spectrum. It is not a binary. Across the gender spectrum, it is something we all can work on.
Perfect. Thank you.
Just one more.
No. I'm gonna kick you out of here. All right. So last question is basically, how have your priorities, your definition of success, changed throughout your careers? Let's close it off there.
Well, I'm going to say really quick, my definition of success is freedom. But the freedom to rest, yes. I never felt like I had a choice in rest before. I never had the luxury of saying, you know what, I'm not feeling like I want to be around people today. I'm going to stay home. That's freedom. You know what, I was thinking about working through the holidays, but no, I'm going to take the last 6 weeks of the year off. Which I actually do that now. I do that every year. I take the last 6 weeks because I don't really take any time off all year. So at the last 6 weeks of the year, I take that time for myself. I do absolutely nothing if I don't want to, or if I want to jump on a flight and go hang out in the sun. That's what I do. But that's we have refueling, right? I think, and I think that's success. I think recognizing that we don't have to be in all the places all the time doing all the things is a certain level of freedom that to me equals success.
I love it.
Yeah, and I think the definition is always changing, at least for me. I think it's different phases and stages of my life. Success means different things to me and the things that I define as success. And so I think a theme that my friends and I are all talking about is about taking time to reflect about yourself and what it means to you, and taking power in silence and in meditation and in self-reflection. And there's such power there, and allowing yourself to be okay with changing your mind, with going one direction or the other, but just staying true to who you are. And my definition of success is different than your definition, than everybody. It's because it's unique. It's yours.
Definition of success is really accomplishing some goals for me. And it could be, one of the goals could be to take off a week. It could be any kind of goal, right? But really being able to set some sort of goals or vision where you want to go and working towards that. And if you accomplish that at whatever level, then I think that is success. And really for me, and I've been very lucky in this, is maintaining the relationships throughout my whole career. And I had my very first client that stayed with me for 30 years in my business. And I can say that about a lot of relationships that I have in Pittsburgh that have been long-time relationships. That's huge success to me.
That's huge, yeah.
And that my kids survived, that's success. I do have a grandbaby now.
Trying to think what I can say that hasn't already been said by all of these brilliant women. One thing that stuck out for me as each of you were talking about is being able to define what success means. And I think what I would leave us with is that it evolves as we evolve. You know, what was success when I first started this company 10 years ago was different than when my son was in high school, and it's different now that he's in college. And so for me, when I think about success, I think about checking my checklists. So I think as human beings, we all have these invisible checklists that rule our lives. You know, I have a checklist of what makes a good mom. I have a checklist of what makes a good entrepreneur. I have a checklist of what makes a good coach. And for a lot of us, we operate underneath the weight of this invisible checklist without ever questioning what's on it. So a quick story to close us out. In pre-COVID times, I was coming home from a very long day downtown, and I live in the South Hills of Pittsburgh in Mount Lebanon. I was sitting on Banksville Road, and I was stuck in traffic. And I got a text from my husband, Kevin, that said, "What's for dinner?" And I was in traffic, so I could text. And I texted back, "I don't know, what are you having for dinner?" or something snippy. I can't remember exactly what it was, but here's what I do remember. I saw the 3 little dots come up and then go away. And then I saw the 3 little dots come up again and go away, and I was like, yeah, that's right. I get home and I pull into the garage and I come up the stairs and he's sitting in the recliner eating potato chips, ruining his dinner. And I don't remember what happened next, but what I do remember is I said something along the lines of what makes a good dinner, and it ended with, "You knew I wasn't Betty Crocker when you married me." Later on that night when I calmed down, he said to me, he's like, I want to talk about what happened. Like, what do you mean, a good dinner? And I immediately rattled off to him, well, a good dinner is a meat and a starch and a vegetable and a salad, ideally with Pillsbury dough rolls. That came out of my mouth. I don't even know where that came. As it did, I thought to myself, that's my mom's checklist. And he looked at me and he said, babe, I would have been fine with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And Eli piped up and he's like, I could have done macaroni and cheese. And I thought to myself, all right, Christy.
Why didn't you just do that?
That's exactly And I share that because I feel like in so many ways, as business owners, in corporate America, in the not-for-profit space, if we're, not in the workforce, we have these unwritten, unspoken checklists that we operate under and we judge ourselves against. And so I just invite you to think about, identifying what is success for you right now and recognizing and giving yourself the grace that may be different a year from now. It's definitely going to be different 10 years from now, and which goes back to Daniela's point of where can you find the white space in your life to reflect on what is it for you right now.
All right, ladies, we're past time.
But of course we are.
Is there anything that you really were hoping to say today that you did not?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Congratulations.
Oh.
Yes!
No pressure here.
Thank you, ladies, for coming and sharing. Just thank you, Tammy. It is a privilege, and I'm humbled to constantly have these spaces and have these conversations. And honestly, thank you all for coming and supporting. So thank you.
Yes.
Last thing is, if anyone has additional questions, these women are predominantly on LinkedIn. Connect with them, follow them. They are amazing. They constantly give out great nuggets. So thank you.
That was fabulous. So proud. Great. Moderator.
So beautiful. You're so beautiful. You keep inspiring.